Hi everyone, today I would like to do a video response which I saw on Peekaboorose in answering to HazelJane tarots. And since I haven't been doing video responses where the questions were things that I can answer and which allows me to think a bit more than usual, I decided to try this. So let's go on to it. So the first question in this video response is, what is your personality or soul card, which is what you get by adding the numbers of your birth date together. So when I was young, my birth date adds up to number 22, and when I was young I would associate it with the Fool as well, because I see the Fool as 0 and as 22. But 2 plus 2 is 4, so it is the Emperor. And then the shadow card is 1 plus 3, which is 13, Death. This 3 card represents me. I would say yes. So we talk about the Emperor first. This is from my tarot deck, Tarot of Passing Showers, and represents what I see in the Emperor, which is somebody of power, somebody who is strong and confident and laughs in the face of any difficulties. In short, he is resilient. So I won't say that I'm a very resilient person, but what I can say is that I'm a confident person, self-confident. I have self-confidence, which doesn't mean that I have a high self-esteem. I believe I have a low self-esteem but a high self-confidence. What that means is that if somebody asks me to try something, I would say yes, because I know I am self-aware and I know where my strength and what I can do. I know that I'm clever enough to understand quite a lot of things, and if I can understand, why not just try? So this is what I see in the Emperor. And I am somebody who, despite being a Libra, which is often associated with indecisiveness, what I know for myself is that if I do take a long time to make a decision, but if I do, I would set out to in action immediately. And this is what I believe of the Emperor as well, as a Aries archetype, which is the first sign in the zodiac. He sets plans into motion, and he is willing to see that to an end if he represents the masculine archetype. So you notice that I talk about the Death as my shadow card, which I see that in my daily life as well. For example, I have I won't call it an obsession, but I do walk with death every second of my life, which may mean that I'm a bit morbid at times, but at the same time I like to dig open things, like the spray over open skeleton of this bird here. I like to dig in deep, and in one example I can mention is, like, for example, if I were to see people talking on the strangers, I would like to observe them and try to pick up tiny motions or tiny details that I feel like can help me understand them more. Or in other ways, one other way that I can give an example of is how when I buy things, I will often think of their death. So what that means is, first, how long am I going to use it? Because if I don't use it, I'm going to throw it away, and that is kind of like a death. And how long will this thing last if I were to throw it away? That is to say, if it were to be put into a landfill, how long will it take to break down into nothing? And if we talk about death, we talk about life as well. So I will think of the life cycle of the item that I'm buying, where or who are the ones who create them, and what kind of challenges do they face in bringing this item to us. And of course, when this item comes to us, how much of the resources is it going to waste? For example, like if this thing were to be shipped via the air transport to us, how much of the carbon tax, for example, how much is it going to cost? So I do think quite a lot when I buy things, and in terms of the life cycle. So it does, in a way, it helps me to cut down on buying a lot of things, but also it makes me, should I say, darker person to be with, because I'm not like people who can just buy things very easily and do not think so much. Maybe life will be better if I don't think so much, and that is also related to the fool. So when we talk about the fool, we think about somebody who doesn't care so much, or who just take leaps of faith, maybe even recklessness if it is not the positive archetype. So in this way, fool and death works together hand in hand, in that death makes me a darker person, a person who thinks sometimes too much, and the fool archetype will sometimes jump in and say, it's okay to live life a bit more lightheartedly, and so sometimes I do splurge a bit, sad to say. And when it comes to the usual typical fool archetype we talk about, such as taking risks, I have people commenting that I do take risks. I don't really care very much, but that's also because I think too much until I guess I walk through all the negative consequences that can happen, and thus I do not give a damn after all. Yep. So the second question is, what cards corresponds to sun sign, or in moon sign or rising sign? So perhaps I'm going to do this a bit more differently. I'm a Libra sun, Justice. This is also from the Tarot of Passing Showers. I'm Scorpio moon, so Scorpio is death. This is death from the Thoth. And then I'm a Pisces rising, so Pisces is the moon. So this is also from my tarot deck. So these are the major archetypes of my sun, moon, and rising sign. Then you will see that there are 3 more cards below, because those are the decans that my sign falls under. So I'm born late in the Libra archetype, so I fall into the 4 of Swords, which is kind of true if you look at the Rider-Waite-Smith version, where the person is lying on top of a coffin. I have a lot of difficulty sleeping, and one of my wish is that I can sleep forever. So my moon falls in the middle of the Scorpio sign, so it is the Six of Cups. And in a way, it does correspond to my personality, because although, as I said earlier, I am quite a dark person, but there's a part of me which always wants to see the light, and the beautiful harmonious color of this decan simply reminds me of that morbid but wanting to find happiness, that kind of feeling. So my Pisces rising lies in the middle of the sign, so which corresponds to the Nine of Cups, which is also quite true, because if you look at my art, it feels a bit more fantasy and more dreamy, like the dreamy qualities of the moon and the very soft, beautiful aspect of the Nine of Cups. It does correspond to my personality as well. So on to the third question, which is, which cards reflect how you see yourself presenting in the world, or how you interact with others. So for me, I did cheat a bit. So the first one is simply the image, which is the Eight of Wands from the Mary L. So I often like to see the light in others, which is quite a contradictory personality, I feel. And sleeping a lot, even if it doesn't come very easily to me. So how I see myself presenting myself to the world in this card is that I often hit by a force larger than myself. Even though I do not call it God, I may call it the source, I may call it the all. I don't know what to call it really, but I know that I'm being carried by this force larger than myself, which is the pure light. And I often like to bring this light to others, even though I myself may not have the same color as this light. So I don't talk a lot. I'm quite a quiet person, so which is the blueness. But sometimes when I talk, people will say I'm actually not quite a quiet person. I can talk quite a lot if I want to. And yes, I like to sleep, so although it doesn't come very easily for me. And the next, but of course this is not quite the traditional depiction of the Eight of Wands. So if there's a card that I will choose for their traditional meaning, it will be the Judgment or the Aeon, at least in this Thoth version. I see it as representing how I see myself and how I interact with others. Firstly, if you notice, there are sleeping people down below too, so you can tell that rest and sleep is very important to me. And as I said, I'm not a very talkative person, so you can see the silence gesture. And I'm somebody who, although do not and of course I said earlier here, I believe myself to be carried by a source, the eternal, which is, for example, I see myself here in the middle, and then this eternal holding me. Yeah. Hope it's understandable interpretation. Which card reflects your approach to spirituality? And I have decided to do it with which card best represents you as a tarot reader as well. So these two, approach to spirituality and representing me as a tarot reader, because I'm going to do it together because there's only one card for me definitely that does this, which is the moon card, which is also my rising sign. So I said earlier that I keep emphasizing earlier that I'm quite a dark person, but I want to see the light. So that's essentially what the moon is. The moon reflects light of the sun, and this is the light that I hope to capture in the darkness I often find myself in. And at the same time, in this depiction by the Thoth, in the Thoth deck, it reflects my spirituality in that I don't have a definite answer to what I believe in. I just walk the path, and maybe one day I will find the light where the moon reflects from. Also, it is how I describe myself as a tarot reader, because like I said, I'm not a very talkative person. Some of my tarot community friends, they are very good at talking, and they can explain themselves really well. And sometimes when I speak to my clients, they will ask me what am I talking about, which kind of throws me off. And then I realized that I'm actually speaking from a nighttime, from the nighttime, which is not a very direct, not a very clear cut, not a very obvious way. So I like to talk in terms of pictures, in terms of imagery. Maybe it's just the way that I think as well. So explain things in a way that's not the traditional way, but it's simply just because I look at the pictures and I try to form a story out of them. Yeah, so this is a short video response, and I hope you enjoy it. Bye.